Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. We're going to give everyone about a minute here to get settled, and I'm going to drop a couple links in the chat. So just hang tight for about a minute here, and we will go ahead and get started. Okay, great. Well, welcome everyone to Chipping Away Semiconductor Career Insights. My name is Patrice Macmillan, and I am the Associate Marketing Director of Talent Recruiting here at Kelly Science Engineering Technology and Telecom, and I'll be your guide for today's session. I'm thrilled to be here with Mark Saltrelli. He's our VP of Kelly Engineering, and he's here to share his insights into the semiconductor industry. We're going to talk business trends, career opportunities, and talent strategies. Kind of how do you navigate the market out there now? We know it's ups and downs and all over the place. So he's got kind of all the answers. Whether you're an engineer, a technician, a soon-to-be grad, recruiter, business leader, or simply curious about semiconductors and kind of what the industry is like, this is for you. So get ready to gain valuable knowledge about the ever-evolving semiconductor landscape. Let's meet our panelist, Mark Saltrelli.
Awesome. Thanks, Patrice.
Absolutely. Okay, let's dive right in. So I want to go ahead and set the stage. So semiconductor industry has seen huge growth. I mean, disruption in recent years. We all know what's been going on recently. So could you just kind of share a brief overview of key trends that you're seeing in the industry right now and kind of how it's affecting everything?
Absolutely. Well, I mean, I would say one word: evolving. One of the biggest trends is definitely the shift towards advanced nodes in packaging technology, right? As we tackle the demand for smaller, more compact, more efficient chips. When you look at technology, you know, everybody hears AI and 5G, the influx of data centers, electronics, and more drive that demand. But we're also seeing supply chain challenges, you know, and regionalization efforts to diversify manufacturing hubs. That's why you're seeing grants in northern parts of New York, Idaho, and others starting to build new fabs, which is really exciting. But you know, with that excitement comes great transformation, right? So as I just mentioned, heavy investments happening. If you haven't heard, Monday the U.S. finalized a $6.1 billion CHIPS Act funding for Micron. On that same day, Google just announced its super quantum chip, Willow, that has a computing power to solve problems in 5 minutes versus 10 septillion. Yes, that is a real number. It's a 10 with 24 zeros, folks. So, and Google stated on Monday that this is just the beginning. So this is a very exciting time to be in this industry, for sure, Patrice.
That is fascinating. I mean, opportunities abound, it sounds like. So from a talent perspective, how are those trends shaping hiring and skills development specifically?
Great question. So with the influx and increase in technology, talent also has to advance as well, right? So with new technology comes a new need for specialized skills. You know, we're seeing a high demand for expertise in photolithography, that's a tongue twister, process development, and obviously AI and ML integration as well. But with these investments come with new construction fabs, you know, which is going to require tool installation and potentially retrofitting. You know, if you look at the US, we've gone through so many different facilities and we want to be able to either reuse those facilities for emerging technologies. So there's a lot of infrastructure that kind of comes with this as well, which obviously brings a lot of jobs. So expect to see more semiconductor fabs and manufacturing throughout the rest of the country. You know, it's really exciting. I'm from upstate New York, and to hear about, you know, Micron and Edwards, Atlas Copco making investments in Buffalo, New York, and Syracuse, it's a really exciting time because you have so many schools that have emerging talent there that you can have internships and so much things. So it's really exciting. Obviously, you can tell I'm super passionate about it, but you know, with that, you know, companies will need to focus on attracting top talent, and it's going to come with some perks, right? If you look at where the semiconductor talent is today, it's heavy out west, right? And down south too, like around Texas, we have little pockets of it, but we need to be able to spread that talent out throughout the rest of the country. So customers and clients and agencies, right? We're going to find ways to increase incentives and more. So in addition to talent attraction, though, upskilling and reskilling are key focuses as well for both the employers and the employees.
Definitely. Okay. So for those who are interested in entering or advancing in the semiconductor field, what advice can you give people? How can they go about that? How can they kind of take the next step, take their career to the next level?
Absolutely. So I would say one thing that's really fascinating about the semiconductor industry is the ecosystem of it, right? And I think if you talk to engineers and technicians and semiconductor leaders, right, by understanding, A to Z of the semiconductor industry, from buying of materials, procurement, and all those things, you can understand where you could actually put your value, right? So whether you're an engineer, a technician, or soon-to-be grad, having that understanding of how the semiconductor ecosystem and product lifecycle works, right, is going to give you an understanding and direction of where you should go. When I look at talent that we talk to every day, we talk to a lot of talent that have either been in the semiconductor industry or came from other industries that have been transferable. And those transferable industries have been aerospace, even automotive at times, electronics, et cetera. So we're finding ways to take transferable skill sets to get them into semiconductor industry because we know the demand is so high, right? And that's where the upskilling comes into play. But also, the semiconductor industry has a huge network, right? So they have tons of conferences, they have tons of LinkedIn groups. Don't hesitate to connect with professionals already in the field. There's tons of them. But most importantly, follow Kelly for upcoming news, events, jobs, programs, and projects. The semiconductor industry has plentiful network events, like I mentioned. There's one Semicon that happens every year that we attend, and it's just an amazing environment, and it's an amazing to see competitors work almost together versus competing against each other. And I think that's something that you don't see often. The technologies, the ways that they're doing business, the way that they're sourcing, things like that, they see that they're helping the world grow, right, by working together versus working against each other, which is pretty cool.
That's so true. It's such important work that it's kind of, we all have to band together to really make a difference. Yeah. I'd love for you to kind of spill some of the tea a little bit about what are some companies using to attract and retain talent. So what can we share with the people who are attending the webinar today? What can they expect that companies are out there doing to try and get people on their teams?
So I think continuous improvement, is always big. Having that flexibility in professional developments is key. And I don't think that's just within semiconductor. I think that's within any other industry or any other profession, in my opinion. But candidates want to know they'll have opportunities to grow at the end of the day. And I think when you look at semiconductor and the growth that it's had, it definitely has that. But it's like, okay, well, where do you start? Right? And I think if you start as a technician or you start as an intern, right? Again, going back to what I mentioned, understanding that ecosystem and how things move throughout the cycle, from the fabs to the deployment and all those other things, right, can go a long way. But some other things that companies are trying to do, is trying to offer some type of hybrid work for some of the roles where design and some other things. Obviously, when we're in the fabs, you have to be there, right? So there's a lot of opportunities too of being on the ground floor on some of these amazing technology advancements. But this is also an industry that requires possibly some global travel. So we hire a lot of field service engineers and consultants, and they love traveling. They go all over the place. So for those that want to get out, right, and even recent grads that have gone through different countries or love traveling, this is a good industry to be in because that's something that comes from it too, and you experience different cultures, different technologies. Again, the industry, while there's tons of competitors, right, there's a lot of joint ventures and ways people partner to help grow the industry further.
Absolutely. Okay, so what role do the business leaders and the recruiters play in ensuring that their companies are competitive? Because I know you said, that there's that, non-competitive aspect when we're at these conferences and stuff, but we all know in the end, we are competing for the same talent. What are these business leaders doing in competing for this top talent?
Yeah, so absolutely. I think it's funny. We go to the conferences and everyone's buddies and they're talking to each other. And one person went to this company and it's like, oh, I remember you. But when you actually have them like in a business meeting, right? They all say, I want the best of the best. Of course, everyone wants that, right? But I think you talk to recruiters and business leaders, and what their role is, it's prioritizing their brand as their employer, right? And showcasing and differentiating from a cultural perspective, right? So retention is also critical here. Companies have recognized and implemented retention strategies, whether it's been bonuses, incentives, or different types of recognition programs to help retain top talent. For business leaders out there, this is where Kelly can really provide a lot of support. From a talent attraction perspective, recruiters need to focus on creating a seamless candidate experience from the first conversation to onboarding to the candidate starting and then development, right? But building long-term relationships with talent, right, goes such a long way, even if they aren't hired right away, right? Because like I said before, we have a lot of talent that are semiconductor curious, right? But they're in aerospace or they're in electronics, right? So it might not be right now, right? It might be something later on, right? Because again, the demand for this type of talent is increasing and the flexibilities of having certain transferable skill sets is getting higher as well. So those are just some critical things I would say, out of any industry, whether it's semiconductor or automotive, talent wants seamless ability to be hired, right? They don't want to go through 10 different interviews. They don't want to go and do an assessment and all those things, right? They want a seamless way, in a positive way, to be hired and go through the hiring process.
I think this is a great transition. I would love to hear about how Kelly in particular is uniquely positioned to provide value in this industry because, with this exponential growth and this competitiveness and just kind of unpredictability, how can you please walk us through how your team at Kelly supports both clients and talent in this, this hiring process through the semiconductor industry?
Absolutely. So at Kelly, we have dedicated resources from recruiters to consultants to operations. We have a whole suite of really smart people at Kelly that know semiconductor talent. We've been doing it for decades. That's the reality too. This isn't our first rodeo. But we understand that having a dedicated approach specializes us, right? And also differentiates us from our own competition, right? And we have noticed that differentiation has really helped us have better conversations with our talent and better conversations with their customers. But when you look at our core solutions based on kind of the industry and where we have had success, based on what our clients are telling us and what the talent's telling us, it's really three core solutions: staff augmentation, statement of work, project and program delivery. So from a staff augmentation perspective, right, this helps businesses get talent quickly to fill a pain, whether it's short-term or long-term projects, right? And then our statement work type of solution can help define and take on certain niche projects and certain deliverables, and we can help manage some of those resources and timelines because we understand the engineers and the managers, they have a full-time job as well, right? And they have other projects. And then lastly, project and program delivery, right? This is for larger, more complex needs: tool installation, validation, testing, debugging, right? We provide end-to-end solutions handling entire programs and allowing clients to focus on their core business. And on the talent side, we've heard this is what I want, right? So we empower those individuals by connecting them with these roles that align with their skills, their career goals, and also their financial goals, right? But by offering some of these tailored solutions, we help companies adapt to their unique needs. For example, staff augmentation is ideal for ramping up production pretty quickly, while SOW is perfect for R&D, tool installation, testing and verification, like I mentioned, niche project, sustainability. It also supports longer retention and engagement. This flexibility allows clients to stay agile while accessing the right top talent at the right time.
That's great. I love that there are so many different options, and I think that that works really well for both the talent and the clients on both sides. So I would love, if you could explain a little bit more. You mentioned the statement of works and the project delivery and how that customization can kind of affect the success of a solution. So I would love if you could share some recent success stories that highlight how these approaches have helped companies in the semiconductor industry overcome challenges and achieve their goals. And of course, the talent as well, like who, people that we have placed in these roles, how have they kind of helped achieve these goals throughout their tenure?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, we have multiple success stories, with the solution, and some are huge, some are small, right? And I think that's what's nice about what we can offer is no matter what you throw at us, we're going to find a way to solution and find a way to help you, right? So we've done it all with household names that everyone recognizes, the service providers and suppliers that support some of the bigger companies, but while we look to evolve and expand on some of these solutions, we've had statement work solutions for over a decade, if not more, right? But in recent months, we've deployed a team of 20 field service engineers just recently for a major semiconductor client in Phoenix, Arizona. The client had a major challenge of not only attracting top talent quickly, but retaining and ultimately trying to do their core engineering function, which was installing and maintaining millions and millions of dollars in tools to fabs across the country and sometimes across the pond. So our suite of statement work solutions not only resonated with them really well, but it successfully placed multiple resources in a short amount of time, about just 30 days, 20 field service engineers within 30 days without a hiccup in between. Another was placing multiple design and electrical and mechanical engineers for a supplier that specialized in developing and building new fabs for one of the largest semiconductor companies in the world. Again, using our statement work suite of solutions, we successfully placed critical and valuable talent and kept our customer focused on the next engineering project, which we just heard yesterday. There's another one coming. Go figure. But it's pretty exciting stuff. It also makes me incredibly proud of the work and the impact we make for our talent and our customers and the team that we have here at Kelly, the customers that we work with, the talent. It's a really exciting time to not only be here, but so proud of the work that everybody puts in to make it work.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, Mark, thank you so much for sharing your insights. I would love to open the floor for some questions from the audience. If anyone has any, feel free. I don't see any in the chat or the questions box so far, but feel free to drop any questions in there if you have any questions for Mark while we've got him as a captive audience.
I got time.
But otherwise, yeah, I think it's really great to just hear more about people being put to put 20 people to work in 30 days in semiconductor. I think that's incredible, and just to hear about like the impact that it makes immediately, it's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and then when you hear from the talent saying this is the best job ever, and we hear from them and they're still on assignment and they're sending us, pictures of them. Hey, I'm about to go on my next, project. It's really exciting to just live kind of through them. So it is very exciting.
Okay, great. Well, I haven't seen any questions pop through, so I'm going to assume that you answered them all through the coverage today. So that's great news. But before we sign off, I wanted to just give you a huge thank you for sharing your expertise with us. Oh, here's one.
Okay, cool.
Through. So there was someone that was hired and they they want to get in contact with someone. Oh, they're all popping through. Okay, great. Love it. Okay, 1 second. Let me get caught up here. Okay.
All right, perfect. As soon as we say we're leaving, it's like, oh wait.
Yeah, exactly. That's great. We'll stay. um, okay. Okay, well, we can absolutely, if there's someone that was hired to start on a fab earlier this year, and we can work with you one-on-one after this, I have your information here, and we'll get in touch with you one-on-one right after this call. And then I saw, how does the announcement of the closing of Microchip in Chandler, Arizona affect the market?
So good question. I think, with some of the closings of certain companies, I think for us, there's still so much investment elsewhere in Chandler with others that as much as that is going to make an impact, I think when you look at the other investments and the other, infrastructure that's coming out of other areas, we're going to see some of maybe I hate to say maybe smaller organizations, get pretty maybe eaten up, by maybe some of the bigger organizations, right? So I think while we're going to see some of that happen, right, and that happens, I think, with any other industry, there's still so much investment happening elsewhere that sometimes it's almost addition by subtraction, right? So as maybe one company, either divests or whatever the case may be, another company is investing, right? But the reality is, whether you've worked at that company or you have experience from that company, right? That experience is so valuable. You could use that wherever. And again, like I mentioned, right? There's companies building new fabs throughout the country. Idaho, Utah, upstate New York, right? Michigan, Georgia. There's a lot happening that teams and companies will have to pay top dollar, right, for talent to move because they need that valuable resource and that skill set. So I think, again, it is tough to see companies close their doors and some other things, but I see there's more investments and there's other advancements going on elsewhere that we're going to see some things kind of trickle off and kind of fall to the wayside, but it's still going to be on the up and up. And if you look at actually the revenue streams and the sales in the semiconductor industry, it's never been higher.
Great. We have a great question here about transferable skills. So you mentioned transferable skills. Can you mention some of the popular ones specifically related to semiconductor industry?
Yeah, no, a really good question. I think, especially again, understanding the ecosystem of the semiconductor industry is important. I would say, electromechanical experience goes a really long way. And I know that's super broad, but I think when you look at some of the tool installation that's being done, some of the fabrication that's being done into some of these fabs and some other things, if you've come from an environment that has been very, let's say aerospace, right? Very SOP related, right? Standard operating processes, using certain things. So I think when you look at transferable skills, there's a huge amount, especially in the technician side of things, where if you're electromechanical heavy, right? Absolutely great. I think when you look at other people as well on the design side, right? Whether they were designing electronics or hardware, that can actually be useful as well in the semiconductor industry. So whether you are building or working on embedded systems for maybe an auto manufacturer, right? That has computing in it, right? That has other things in it. So that can be transferable as well. And then also too, when you look at some of the, again, the field service engineers that we look at, we have field service engineers that have worked in multiple industries, from food to aerospace, electronics, automotive, right? Obviously, it's always a plus to come in with semiconductor industry, but we've seen, those industries be pretty transferable because at the end of the day, they all rely on each other, right? Computers are needed for planes, right? Chips are needed for computers, right? Vice versa. So that's where it's also when you start to kind of use the ecosystem of the web of how much does semiconductor touch, right? You can always trace it back to where you can actually have transferable skills.
I would argue too, just to having seen the way that your team works, I think that that's also one of the huge benefits to working with a recruiter is that they kind of help you identify those transferable skills and they can really help you like pull those out and highlight those on your resume, or when they're, submitting you to different clients, they can help you really call
Yeah.
out what is most valuable.
Yeah, and actually from our clients, we ask that all the time. Hey, if we can't find someone maybe within this skill set, what are some industries that you feel that could be transferable? And we hear a lot,
Yep.
aerospace, electronics, right? Heavy regulated environments as well. It's there's med device is kind of, I would say, tough, or even oil and gas, because that's such process and chemicals related. But again, understanding the ecosystem. If you're on the front end of the ecosystem, right, you're on the material side, right? So if you have a material science background, right, that actually might help you on the front end of the semiconductor life cycle, right? So that's where having that understanding of kind of where your value is and what your background is, right, is going to help you understand kind of where you fit within that product life cycle and within that specific job.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, so we had someone ask about the semiconductor industry and specifically in Vancouver, British Columbia. I don't know if you have any insights on that specific
Yeah.
location.
Actually, we actually did a project last year. So we do service Canada as well. And one of the projects we did was for a major semiconductor company, and it was towards the construction fab side of things. But we had, I think, about 15 resources out there supporting it, from construction coordinators. And again, it was really more of the building of the fabs and moving of equipment and some other things. But again, I think if you look at Canada and you look at even not only Vancouver, but what we're doing in Ontario and Quebec, right? There's so much automation that's happening. There's
Yeah.
so much computing that's happening. There's so many smart factories going on, right? That's going to be needed for chips and things like that. So while I don't have a ton of information on the Vancouver piece, when I look at the technology investments happening in Canada, I can only assume that it's going to increase demand elsewhere, right? And we need to be able to work as partners to help with that.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, we had another great question about how to get started as an entry-level service technician, if you have any quick tips specifically for that.
Great question. So like I mentioned before, right, there's the household names, there's the big names, and then there's some of the suppliers, the service and kind of the engineering services teams. My suggestion is actually start looking and getting your feet wet into some of those engineering services companies, right, that service the bigger names, right? So it could be vacuums and pumps, and again, tool installation, even some automation that might come from it for some of the fabs, whatever the case may be. So as a service technician, I would really focus on trying to go after some of the smaller players to get some experience, because the likelihood is they work with some of the bigger players. So you're actually going to get some experience along the way too, because you're going to have to follow procedures and protocols that follow that. So that would be my suggestion, especially as a service technician. Go after maybe the smaller suppliers, right? And engineering service providers, right? Whether, again, pumps, vacuums, even the lithography equipment, like I mentioned, right? There's a lot of companies out there that again help other major semiconductor companies. That's a good place to start, right? And usually that's where we start when we start recruiting. Hey, if I can't find someone from the big name, right? Well, where else can I find them where they had relevant experience in a very similar environment? So that'd be my suggestion.
And I think tied with that, we had a couple people actually mention in the questions as well some of the like quick start or training seminars offered like at local colleges for like field service positions. Do you have any insights or have you heard any success stories of people going through those?
Yeah, actually, that's definitely something that's happening everywhere. So whether it's community colleges or even a 2-week class, there's a lot of that happening, and that's something that we're actually trying to implement here at Kelly is a center of excellence, and we want to be able to use whether it's our own consultants or our own engineers and some other things to help upskill, right, some of the talent that want to get into the semiconductor industry. So yes, absolutely. And again, like I mentioned, because semiconductor is now getting more than just in Arizona and Oregon and California, right? There's a lot more schools that are investing, some of these classes and some of these things. And that definitely adds some value as well. So,
Yep.
um, do your research, obviously, as always, but there's a lot of options out there for you to take advantage of, for sure.
Okay, great. Well, we are right at time here, so I was going to go ahead and wrap things up. But before we sign off, I wanted to give a huge thank you to you, Mark, for sharing your expertise. And if you're interested in learning more or if you have further questions, please feel free. I had dropped in the chat a link. You can go ahead and meet with a Kelly engineering expert, either a recruiter or one of our account executives one-on-one. You can just go ahead and submit your information there and we will connect you within the next couple days. And then we also send a link out to our jobs there. So you can go ahead and browse what we have open or submit your open interest, and we'll send you any connections or any open listings that come up in your area and your area of expertise. So please feel free to utilize both those resources. And thank you so much for taking your time this evening to join us. We're so happy to be able to connect with you all in the semiconductor industry.
Yes, absolutely. Take care. Have a great week, everybody.
All right, thank you.